Hello and welcome to another Rightly Witterings with me, Michael Jex, the tea drinking author who's got a lovely cup of breakfast tea here because it's early in the morning. Now I'm going to have to keep this one fairly brief because I've got one of those lovely days ahead where, as well as trying to fit in typing up the next book, I've also got to go and have both eyes injected with noxious chemicals to stop me going blind. So it's one of those days. Now, I thought today would be a good day to talk about nibs just a little bit, because I have had a number of people asking, is that one really a fine or is it an extra fine? Is that one a broad or a double broad? And I have got a wide selection of different nibs, and it's very difficult to compare them without actually getting a sheet of paper and writing with them. Why? Well, because different pen manufacturers use different standards for their size of nib. If you go to a firm like, just thinking of the different pens I've got, but Pilot, for example, the Preppies, they will give you nibs where they specify exactly how broad the line should be. So it might be 0.2 millimeters, for example, which is the type I use for my sketches. Other pens, such as my wonderful Pineda, not sure how you pronounce it, it's Italian. I always say Pineda because I was trained in German when I was a kid, so it sort of seems more logical. This has got an extra fine nib. Very, very fine indeed. And it's wonderful to write with, to sketch with. It's a superb steel nib. And that's something that people do get hung up about. You don't necessarily need to have the most beautifully designed and manufactured solid gold nib to get really good results. TWSBIs tend to give very good results. So do cross pens, so do Pinedas with the steel nibs, and Viscontis. But there are other types of pen. Now, if you pick up a pen from an Asian manufacturer, their lines will be a lot thinner than a European type. And that's because when you're doing kanji writing or Chinese writing, you don't necessarily want to have a big fat nib because that'll take up a lot of space on the paper. But if you have a fine nib, you can get much more information down. With Western writing, because we write in our standard Roman format, I think that is more forgiving with broad nibs and fatter. But certainly European style nibs, a European fine will be a lot fatter than an Asian fine. And then within manufacturers, you'll find that they have their own different standards. So I find that Conway Stewart pens have fatter lines generally than many other even European manufacturers. So having said that, I thought rather than talking about the different types of nib that give an extra fine or a medium or a broad or a double broad or whatever, I'd talk about something slightly different. So here we have two slightly different pens. This is the Pineda Avatar Traveller, which is magnificent in terms of its competence as a pen to take out and about. I love my Viscontis. They're glorious pens. I've got 4 Visconti Homo sapiens pens. But I have to admit, this is the pen that I tend to use much more. Currently not inked, but why do I like it? Magnetic cap, nice and straightforward. Very quick method of filling it. All you do is turn the end there. It's a bayonet fitting. So you just turn it a little bit of a turn, pull back, put the nib into some ink, push down, and it sucks ink all the way up into the barrel and fills it just about. It's a magnificent filling system. But the nib is curious if you look at it because it's got slots cut out of either side. Now this nib costs as much, I think, as the pen. Why? Well, it is gold. it's nickel covered or rhodium covered or something, but it is gold. And the main thing about it is very flexible. And it writes, I think, beautifully. I just adore it. And the great thing is, if I'm going to London for a couple of days or something, I can fill that and I won't need any more ink, because there's enough ink in that barrel, in that reservoir, to keep me going for days. It's just wonderful. So what other types of flexible nib have I got here? This is a Tom Studio pen. I'll put a link to these pens down below. But what is special about this is it too holds a lot of ink, because all of this section is the reservoir. It's what's called an eyedropper. You just fill it with... I've got a Rhodesian Ridgeback resting her chin on my legs, demanding attention right now. You fill all of this with ink, and this too will last a long time. But what's special about this one, if you look at it, is the nib is a very dull grey colour. It looks really rather boring. However, that nib is made of titanium, a very highly flexible type of metal. And this is the same as my Avatar Traveller. It is a flexible nib. So what does flex actually mean? Well, here's something I wrote a bit earlier. I'll put it up here and then it'll be covered when I go into post-production with a photo of it. The lovely thing is you can see that the downstrokes go very fat, but then when you don't press much, you get much lighter strokes. Now, why is this important? Well, it's important, I think. It's very much a personal view, but for a lot of people who start out trying to use a fountain pen, they find it very difficult. Why? Well, because they're used to using pencils at school. They're used to using biros or roller balls or ballpoints, whatever you want to call them. And they require a certain amount of pressure constantly used, which is fine. But of course, they pick up a fountain pen and start pressing as hard, and they find that the lines get really fat, and people find it scary. They really do get anxious about using a fountain pen because it feels like a totally different experience. And it is. For one thing, when you're using a ballpoint, you have to press continually, moderately hard. Now, I can't use ballpoints because it looks like a very drunk spider has fallen into a vat of ink and then scrawled his way across the paper. With a fountain pen, you don't have to press hard at all. A good fountain pen, you shouldn't have to press at all, hardly. And the great thing is that it's therefore a lot less tiring on your hand to write, because the pen is resting in your hand and you're just moving it across the paper. So for long writing periods, I find a fountain pen is a great deal easier on my hands. And that's fairly important to me because I've had to have operations on my elbows because of cubital tunnel, the nerve being trapped under the cubital tunnel. So I've had to have both elbows cut open and hacked around with a large hacksaw or axe or something. And so using as little pressure as possible, I find much more comfortable. And these do that. These allow me to write without any effort at all. But also, because you get that glorious fatness on some lines going down, thinness on sideways, and that's not because you're putting a lot of pressure on it. It's because it's more natural when you're doing a downstroke, for example, that you will press slightly harder because you're going down towards your hand. And so this was written without making any effort in it at all, using the Tom Studio fountain pen with the titanium nib. This is not a full flex nib according to Tom Studio. It's a semi-flex. I'd be interested to try one of their fully flex nibs, but what I love about it is it's not expensive. It's relatively inexpensive. and it's really reliable. I actually took this on a cycle trip which I went on a couple of years ago across northern France. So for several days I was cycling around. This was in my pocket all the time. Never leaked or burped. And then whenever I wanted to sit down and take a note when I was eating a pastry or something fun, this was the pen I used. I didn't take anything else with me because it was small, it was compact, it was convenient, and it sat in a zipped up pocket perfectly safely. This I would have taken, but to be honest, it's a bit too valuable for me to take on a push bike. So this Tom Studio I find really practical, really effective, and it gives me a degree of flexibility with my writing. They actually list it as being a pen for people who want to take up calligraphy. And I can understand that, but I would say this is less for calligraphy. I think the fully flex nib would be ideal for calligraphy, but this I think is far better for general day-to-day use if you want to make your writing look that bit neater. There is no doubt in my mind that compared with a ballpoint is infinitely better. And that is it for now. I'm now going to go and gird my loins, ready to get both eyes stabbed. Really deeply unpleasant, but it has to be done, sadly. And at least I'm now getting a newer version of the injection, which means that it should double the amount of time between injections. That's appealing. But I'm not going to bore you with that, a particularly repellent thought. All I will say is if you like the video and you want to support the channel, hit the like and the subscribe. And if you really want to support the channel, you can go out and buy me a coffee or join my Patreon. Or if you're ever so enthusiastic, you can pre-order now Fields of Glory, which will be coming out on about the 25th, 26th of this month, April. And it's a brilliant story all about the long march to the Battle of Crécy, taking in my own little band of brothers, a group of archers in a vingtaine, which is more or less a platoon if you want to think of it that way, on the march to Crécy with the ups and the downs of a poor little vingtaine who, not knowing where they are, what they're doing there and where they're going. It was a thrilling book to write, wonderful book and thoroughly enjoyable to research, and I can highly recommend it. But I would, wouldn't I? It's my book. So thanks a lot for watching. Speak to you soon. Take care.